Karabakh. Garabagh was an integral part of Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan has been recognized within its established borders. The territorial integrity of Azerbaijan is inviolable. In addition, the existence of one more Armenian state is possible. The ideas put forward by Armenia expressed ostensibly the population of Garabagh wants self-determination, whereas Armenians have already determined their destiny. They have an independent state, the Republic of Armenia. Second, the Armenian state cannot exist in the world, so the independence of Garabagh is inadmissible. Garabagh is the historical land of Azerbaijan, and it may have a higher degree of autonomy only. Ilham Aliyev, President of the Azerbaijani Republic. Preface. Mrs. Mehriban Aliyeva, UNESCO Goodwill Ambassador. Preface. In the current period, humanity has faced a new, more painful evil along with the traditional problems. This evil is named terrorism. Today, terrorism has become the most difficult problem facing the entire world. The appalling acts of terror of recent years show that this disaster is of the same degree of dangerousness for all the countries and peoples, even for the major powers. Azerbaijan has a straightforward and resolute attitude towards this evil. We're against any kind of violent acts, terror, genocide, separatist extremism, ethnic conflicts, and unfair bloodshed. The Azerbaijan Republic is one of the first countries to join the anti-terrorist alliance. Our people are well aware of the heartbreaking tragedies caused by terror, genocide, and separatist extremism. The Azerbaijani people are one of the peoples having most suffered terror, genocide, and forced deportations. Our people have been living a history full of tragedies for 200 years. This bloody history began the beginning of the 19th century with a massive replacement by Tsarist Russia of Armenians from Iran and Turkey to our lands. Our people who created an ancient and rich culture for centuries due to mutual impact of different civilizations, nations, languages, and religions, at the juncture of North and South, East and West, adhere to the traditions of its specific tolerance, forbearance, humanism, and mercy in regard to other peoples and cultures, and provided a place for the immigrant Armenians also. Every condition is created for the socio-economic and cultural progress of the Armenians in our country. However, soon the Armenian chauvinist terrorist circles poisoned with the illusion of Great Armenia wanted to create their own state in the Azerbaijani land where they had moved and lived, relying on their foreign supporters. Firstly, the Armenian district was created for the removed Armenians in Azerbaijan territories. This was followed by clearance of the West Azerbaijani lands from the local residents of these lands, Azerbaijanis, by the armed Armenian terrorist bandit groups provided with all kinds of support from abroad. In 1905, a horrible genocide was committed against the Azerbaijani people. During the First World War, 1914-1918, the Armenian Dashnak armed groups, receiving assistance from bigger states, again implemented terrible genocide against the local Turkish Muslim population throughout Azerbaijan in accordance with a plan prepared in advance. Hundreds of thousands of Azerbaijanis, including the children, women, and the old, were killed. Our numerous settlements and historical monuments were razed to the ground. Our compatriots, having survived the genocide, scattered about the entire world. Despite of all this, our merciful people made a new compromise. In order to achieve peace in the southern Caucasus and put an end to the bloody massacres committed by the Armenian national terrorist groups, the Azerbaijan People's Republic in 29 May 1918 conceded the city of Yerevan, which had been the capital of a former Azerbaijan state, the Yerevan Khanate. Thus, in 1918, the Republic of Armenia was created in Azerbaijan land in the territory of the former Yerevan Khanate. This meant actually the creation of Armenian state in the Azerbaijani land, which contained the territory of Yerevan city and its suburbs. Yet, the Armenian Shonist extreme circles were not satisfied with this either. They made use of their supporters in the Soviet Bolshevik regime and realized our Afghan people a terrible genocide and deportations against the entire Azerbaijani population of the West Azerbaijan. In 1988, the ethnic clearance in West Azerbaijan was complete. Today, Azerbaijanis do not live in the West Azerbaijan. Presently, the Republic of Armenia, that was once populated mostly by Azerbaijanis and belonged to Azerbaijanis historically. In modern circumstances, when our world moves toward mutual understanding, friendship, global stability, and tranquility in relation to globalization and integration, Armenia and the Armenian separatist terrorist circles separated by it have created a new center of tension in the South Caucasus. Armenia made use of the circumstances that emerged in the period when the Soviet Union collapsed and began an underclear war against Azerbaijan. Armenian armed forces attacking our lands occupied more than 20% of the Azerbaijani territory, including GARABAGH and the adjacent regions. Over 1 million Azerbaijanis become displaced from their own places in their own motherlands, thus becoming internally displaced persons and refugees. Armenia created a separatist terrorist regime in the occupied Azerbaijan land, named as the Karabakh Republic, which is now recognized in the world. The territory of this uncontrolled terrorist regime is presently turned into an international den of criminality, where narcotics are cultivated and transited to Europe. Money laundering and other illicit operations are realized. Notwithstanding the international law on inviolability of territorial integrity of the world community countries, the relevant in United Nations organizations resolutions concerning this conflict, European Council parliamentary assemblies, as well as other international organizations' resolutions, Armenia does not withdraw its military forces from the occupied Azerbaijani territories. On the contrary, it spreads false information about the occupied territories, saying ostensibly they are its historical lands. It does not even refrain from putting new territorial claims against Azerbaijan. I think that this book introduced to the readers will create a real picture about both the historical roots of this problem and the real history of Karabakh, and everybody who wants to become acquainted with Armenia-Azerbaijan, the Karabakh conflict. The book titled Karabakh, which covers the brief history of Azerbaijan from ancient times up to the present, as a real history based on irrefutable archive documents and other original sources. This history is not the history of inventions, but of the truths. The archive documents, maps, and photo materials added to the book increase the book's value even more. Based on real facts, the book Karabakh draws attention to how big a tragedy terror is for humanity in the current world and calls all the people to unite and fight actively against this common evil. I believe that this book is written with good intentions and will increase the reader's hate to terror, genocide, separatist extremes, and general acts of all kinds of violence and savagery, as well as to those who commit these evils. This book will strengthen in people the hope of victory of humanism, charity, and friendship ideals over evil. Mrs. Mehriban Aliyeva, UNESCO, God will ambassador.
Replacement of Armenians from Iran to the North Azerbaijan territories. Nakhchivan, Yerevan, Qarabağ, pictured by the Russian painter Mahmudov, 1828. The monument laid by Armenians on the occasion of the 150th anniversary of the replacement from Iran to North Azerbaijan. Agdara, Mardakert, 1978. View of that monument after the part of it showing the date of replacement 150 years was pulled down by the Armenian separatists. Agdara, Mardakert, 1988. Distinguished poets, writers, and literary critics from Qarabağ. Mullah Panakh Vagif, 1717-1797. Khurshid Bani Natavan, 1832-1897. Mir Murshin Munavub, 1833-1914. Qasim Bey Zakir, 1784-1857. Abdurrahim Bey Hakberdiev, 1870-1933. Firudun Bey Köçerli, 1863-1920. Hamida Khanım Cavanşir, 1873-1955. Necaf Bey Vezirov, 1854-1926. Yusif Vezir Çamenzeminli, 1887-1943. Süleyman Rahimov, 1900-1983. Ali Veliyev, 1901-1983. İlyas Efendiyev, 1914-1996. The world-famous composers and singers from Qarabağ. Üzeyir Bəcubəyli, 1885-1948. Zülfüqar Bəhicəbəyli, 1884-1950. Fikrət Əmirov, 1922-1984. Sultan Həcəbəyli, 1919-1974. Niyazi, 1912-1984. Süleyman Ələsgərov, 1924-2000. Bülbül, 1897-1961. Rashid Behbudov, 1915-1989. Arif Babayev, 1938. Sadiq Can, 1846-1901. Khan Shushinsky, 1901-1979. Seyit Shushinsky, 1889-1965. State, military, and social political figures from Qarabağ. Lieutenant General Feraj Bey Ağayev, 1811-1891. Defense Minister of the Azerbaijan People's Republic Samet Bey Mehmandarov, 1856-1931. One of the Azerbaijan national struggle ideologists, Ahmet Bey Ağayev, 1869-1939. Qarabağ General Governor Khosrow Bey Sultanov, 1879-1941. Major General Yagub Guliyev, 1900-1942. Hero of the Soviet Union Aslan Vezirov, 1910-1988. Hero of the Soviet Union Khalil Mehmedov, 1916-1989. Famous oilman, hero of the Socialist Labor Süleyman Vezirov, 1920-1973. Major General Murtuz Guliyev, 1920-1979.
Qarabağ, etymology, territory, and frontiers. Qarabağ, etymology, territory, and frontiers. Qarabağ is one of the ancient historic provinces of Azerbaijan. Being an integral part of Azerbaijan, the name Qarabağ is derived from the combination of two words in the Azerbaijani language, Gara, big, and Bagh, garden. The combination of words big and garden had the deepest historical background as it goes with the Azerbaijani people itself. It's incontestable that such a combination of words is linked to the description of the country of Azerbaijan in every corner of the world. Having named Qarabağ as a part of its native land by the Azerbaijani people, this name has been used as a historical and geographical term beginning with initial sources 1,300 years ago, from the 7th century. Previously, Qarabağ denominated a specific place. Subsequently, it encompassed the vast geographical territory in Azerbaijan. This case is specific to Azerbaijan, seat of Nakhchivan, region of Nakhchivan, seat of Shaki, region of Shaki, seat of Ganja, region of Ganja, seat of Lankaran, region of Lankaran, etc. The historical formation of the word Qarabağ as the name of a specific Azerbaijani province or region enables to substantiate scientifically its etymology.
There is a reason for such a deduction because the word gara in the Azerbaijani language, as in other Turkic languages also, means not only color but also other meanings such as dense, thick, big, dark, etc. In this regard, the name of Garabagh enjoys the following meanings: black garden, big garden, dense garden, glen garden, or scenic garden. So the word Garabagh belongs to the Azerbaijani people as it goes with Garabagh itself. As we are trying to describe Garabagh, such a question arises from the above. Where is Garabagh located and which Azerbaijani territories does it cover? An answer to this question is very topical for the time being and has central importance to understanding the Daghly-Qarabagh problem. First, we have to address the very first sources in order to get an answer. While describing this issue in this History of Garabagh 1847, Mirza Jamal Javanshir, Vizier of the Garabagh Khanate, a part of the Azerbaijan state, has written the following. As it is written in the ancient historical books, it is italicized by us. The frontiers of the Garabagh province are as follows. The southern frontier begins from the Hudafarin Bridge and goes till the Sunik Bridge, the Aras River. Currently, it's located between the districts of Gazakh, Shamsadil, and Demirchasangli, and the officials of the Russian state call it in Russian the Krasnomost, which means Great Bridge. The eastern frontier runs across the Kur River and merges with the Aras River near Jawad village and then falls to the Caspian Sea. On the northern frontier, the boundary of Garabagh with Yelzavetpol is defined by the Gouran River as it crosses with the Kur River, and then the Kur River bypasses many places and joins the Aras River. The western frontier is formed by the high Garabagh mountains called Gushbag, Salvarti, and Artikli. This was written during the first days after the Russian occupation and colonization, and such an exact description of the Garabagh territory and frontiers can be explained by the following reasons. 1. On the one hand, this fact is written by a statesman who was dealing directly with the governance of Garabagh. In other words, this fact is an official description based upon official documents. Those are the words told by a statesman serving the interests of Russia. On the other hand, this fact is not only based upon the reality and experience, but proved by the original sources. It's not by accident that Mirza Jamal refers to the ancient historical books in order to prove this just vision of the issue. As it is seen, there was in history the whole nation of the name Garabagh rather than Daghly-Qarabagh, the geographical entity of all times covering the entire territory of Garabagh, its mountains and plains. In other words, the notion of Daghly-Qarabagh is a kind of byproduct and name applied to one part of Garabagh in accordance with separatist dreams. Simple logic proceeds. If there is Daghly-Qarabagh site, there is to say that there is also the plain Garabagh. The incontestable reality is today there is Daghly-Qarabagh and also Aran Qarabagh in Azerbaijan. Either plain Qarabagh or mountains Qarabagh were in historical times the motherland and cradle of the Azerbaijani people, which definitely call this region Gara and Bagh. Hundreds of ancient and the most extraordinary folkloric arts and traditional music of the Azerbaijani people were specially created in Qarabagh. They are linked to Qarabagh. Qarabagh from the ancient times to the Khanate period, up to the Arabian Caliphate. Qarabagh from the ancient times to the Khanate period, up to the Arabian Caliphate. Qarabagh is not only a region of Azerbaijan, it's one of the regions of the world that has an ancient history. The ancient settlements of Homo sapiens were revealed in the cave of Azur, which is also located in these territories. The settlement of human beings proved that Qarabagh is one of the cradles of civilization that emerged in the region from the Mediterranean basin and Eastern Africa. The Azerbaijani scientist Hussein, who studied in the Azur cave, has written, "The stone implements studied in the Azur cave and the cultural creations show its proximity with the cultural complex all the way in Eastern Africa. At the same time, there are different methods in manufacturing these labor implements. This fact enables us to those names implements are the cultural samples of the Karachay culture extracted from the inner layers of the Azur cave. And the age of the Karachay culture can be very ancient, even dating back to 1,200,000 years. The jawbone of a man named the human being of Azur as Nicanthropus was discovered discovered in the Azal layer of the Azov cave in 1986. The Azov man is believed to have lived 350,000 to 400,000 years ago. The master culture is represented mainly by the Talar cave. The archaeological studies analysis carried on GARABAGH can determine an ample development which had taken place in the Mesolithic and Analysis stages of the Stone Age. Wide-scale change has taken place in GARABAGH during the Analysis of 4th millennium BC Bronze and early Iron stages and the 4th millennium beginning of the 1st millennium. The GARABAGH culture was well developed in the late Bronze and the Iron Ages, 13th, 7th centuries BC. The egg bed of his epoch with a cuneiform engraving linked to Adeniraris ruler of Shur was discovered at the archaeological monument located in graveyard near Hojalu. Such discoveries of artifacts prove the existence of economic and cultural links of this region with the Near East. Parallel to the economic and social life and development, the ethnic and political processes were also underway. The powerful state of Mana, 6th century BC, had emerged in the south of Azerbaijan. The state of Mana succeeded in maintaining its independence in its wars with assuring Urartu. The land of northern Azerbaijan, including the territory of Karabakh itself, didn't fall under the control of Urartu. In the historical period of time, the ethnic known as Armenians didn't exist in the South Caucasus at all. Renowned researchers, authors of joint monographic writings, are of the same opinion while describing the political history of Transcaucasia. The main part of the state of Urartu was located out of the Soviet frontiers. During the Antiquity and the Medieval Age, the areas of dense population of Armenians were located far away from the modern Armenia's south borders. The situation changed with the emergence of the state of Media, 672-550 BC, which ended the existence of the state Urartu. Media had conquered southern eastern territory of Transcaucasia. This rule had persisted during the period of the Achaemenid 550-330 BC. After Alexander the Great, 336-323 BC, has conquered the state of the Achaemenids, the political processes in the northern Azerbaijan had entered into a new phase. As a result of these processes and after the short rule of Alexander the Great and his death, the empire collapsed into many parts. Subsequently, the state of Atropatana and the state of Albania were respectively formed in the south and north of Azerbaijan. Recently, historians of Azerbaijan have given a great tribute to the studies of this period by their own scientific research works, which were ostensibly falsified by the Armenian authors. The scientists of Azerbaijan have enriched the studies on Atropatana and the state of Albania by their new research works. We don't judge it necessary to name all the works in this book. From the 4th century BC, after all, the state of Atropatana had land in the north of Azerbaijan too, and in this period of time a part of the territories of GARABAGH was subordinated to the state of Azerbaijan. Having emerged parallel to the state of Atropatana, the state of Albania, which existed approximately from the 4th century BC till the 8th century AD, played a great role in the history of Azerbaijan during this 1200-year period. Albania has enlarged its borders, which covered the whole territory of Karabakh, and the state stirred hard to preserve Karabakh within its own borders and succeeded in doing so, except in some cases. 6 maps of Mahmudov concerning the state of Albania, including its integral part as Karabakh, the territory of the historical provinces Sakasena, Athena Uti, Arktena Arsak, Arakhana, etc., and the historical dynamics of its borders are incontestably testifying to this idea. Karabakh belonged to the Azerbaijan state of Albania. The ethnos that lived in this area with the Savdav, Gargar and others were Alban tribes.
The first arrival of Armenians to the region of the South Caucasus refers to circa of the 2nd millennium BC. As they entered this region, their aggressive activities were initiated against the regional states and peoples. In this epoch, the Armenians named the tiny Armenian kingdom located at the eastern part of Small Asia, the Great Armenia, and timed to call all lands that were settled by Armenian nomads as Pro-Armenian territories. At the Roman period, wrote Tigran II in 66 BC, this legend of the Great Armenia became fully consecrated because they became as the vassals of Rome. This order lasted till the 4th century AD. Armenians claimed that the historical lands of the state of Albania were an integral part of Armenia. This is neither scientific nor historical grounds. In contradiction to this, the Azerbaijan Albanian state continued to have independent policy, and the historical provinces of Karabakh were part of that state. Research has written, the study of sources and the realities of first 7th centuries ensured us to say that the southern frontier of the state of Albania lay alongside the Aras River. The inclusion of Karabakh to Azerbaijan and the existence of various Turkic ethnies in this territory from very ancient times are also proved by the legendary epic of Azerbaijan and all Turkic peoples, Kitab Dede-Gorgut, being an oral folkloric monument of literature. The epic of Dede-Gorgut was widely disseminated during the 6th-7th centuries in Karabakh as well as in all Azerbaijani territories, including the Lake of Gecha. As confirmed in this valuable heroic saga, some of those heroes have visited and met even with the Prophet Muhammad himself. The famous Oznamari Kitab GARABAGH, written by Abu Bakr Tehran in 1470, written by the order of Uzun Hasan, 1453-1478, ruler of the Argonian state, mentions that summer pastures at the Gecha Sea in Karabakh belonged to the ancient Oghuz Turks, and Oghuz Khan, the founder of Oghuz Turks, was buried near the Gecha Sea. Bayandur Khan lived in Karabakh and had summer houses on the Gecha Sea and was buried there too. Karabakh during the Arabian Caliphate, on Greganization and Armenization in Arshak. Karabakh during the Arabian Caliphate, on Greganization and Armenization in Arshak. The main change in the history of Karabakh start with invasions by the Arabian Caliphate, and as a result of this occupation, the caliphs of the state of Albania. Until the Arabian occupation, the territory of Karabakh was one ethnic origin, that's the Azerbaijan Alban origin. However, the tragic policy demonstrated in Azerbaijan by the Armenian Caliphate at that time, which led to the provision of religious dominance of Armenians in the mountainous parts of the region, gradually showed up as well in the ethnic field. The process of Greganization and later Armenization of the population of Arshak, the historical region of the state of Albania, started. The academician Mahmudov has investigated particularly the reason and the course of the process of Greganization and Armenianization of this region of Azerbaijan, the essence of the Armenian Caliphate cooperation, and other issues, as well as the reflection in the historical literature. Certainly, the process of Armenization was to take more time than that of Greganization, and in fact it did. Therefore, Mahmudov protests against the following words of the accommodation. The Alban Church was considered as a part of the Armenian Church since the 7th century, and at that time the districts of Syunik, Arshak, Ut, and others in the Iran region were Armenianized. And writes, it's not worth it that the two different notions, Armenization and Greganization, are mixed. Iran can speak only about Greganization and of the Iran population through the help of the Armenian Church. Yeramian's point of view regarding to this note is right, since the districts of Syunik and most of the Arshak in the Iran region were Armenianized only in the early 12th century. This idea confirms once again that the people living in these parts of Karabakh were not originally Armenians. On the contrary, they were local Azerbaijan Alban tribes which were later Armenianized, or rather lived, Greganized, and then Armenianized. Odontologic research which provides information about the ethnogang of the population as well as the mutual relationships, and based on modern scientific achievement also proves this. Not accidentally, following the destruction of the Arabian Caliphate, the Principalates of the Sunni Kachun were established in part of Albania. In the late 12th century, the Principality of Sunni fell and its reigning dynasty ended with the death of province Prince Gregorian Sumbat in 1166. The Kachun Principality, created in the territory of Ashur in the late 12th or 13th centuries, was a part of ancient Albania. Thus, not accidentally, there was not a single Armenian state among the surviving local states in the territory of the Arabian Caliphate when the latter collapsed. This proves that unlike Azerbaijan and Georgia, Armenians don't have a history of statehood in the Southern Caucasus at all. This period of time, since the beginning of the 13th century, particularly the period of the reign of Shazakh Atabey Shirin Shahs, was the time when Azerbaijan was becoming very mighty in the Southern Caucasus. The states of Shazakh and Atabey actually united the historical lands of Azerbaijan politically. The Kachun Principality, created in the territory of former Albania, reached its highest rate of progress during the reign of Hassan Jalal, 1215-1261, who belonged to the Mehrani dynasty. Not accidentally, the narrative and epigraphic monuments of the time mention the title ruler of Albania side by side with the titles the Dung of Kachun countries, the majestic Duke of the Kachun and Arshak countries. In other words, all the title of Hassan Jalal belongs to the Azerbaijan-Alban history. One of the most important examples of Alban architecture, the Khan Gajar Monastery, was built during this period of reign. Garabagh is one of the centuries of political life in Azerbaijan, 30s, 40s of the 18th century. Garabagh is one of the centuries of political life in Azerbaijan, 30s, 40s of the 18th century. After putting an end of the Atabey state that was weakened due to first attack of Mongolians 1220-1222, Kharizm Shah Jalaluddin reigned in Azerbaijan 1225-1231, that included Garabagh. Garabagh, as well as other Azerbaijan territorials, fell under the dominion of the Supreme Mongolian Khanate 1239-1256 and further into Hulaku state 1256-1337 after the second attack of Mongolians, which completed the occupation of Azerbaijan 1231-1239. There's much broader information and a better investigation about the history of Garabagh during this period. In that period, the word combination Garabagh was already used to describe a specific geographic territory. Priya writes, the name Arangara was first mentioned in relation with an explanation of the events of 1284 AD in the book Jama at-Tabari by Rashid ad-Din. At that time, Garabagh was a single territory within Iran and consisted of mountains as well as fruitful territories. Garabagh played an important role in the political history of the Hulaku state in the 13th-14th centuries. Priya remarks, the fact that the Mongolian rulers constantly spent a winter in Garabagh led to several governmental events which took place here. From this point of view, it's worth nothing that two Mongolian rulers, Kazan Khan and Arpa Khan, came to the throne in Garabagh. Another two rulers, Sargun Khan and Abu Sa'id, died in Garabagh. And the 13th-14th centuries, also Garabagh was a territory of Azerbaijan with a population consisting of Azerbaijanis. And the 15th century, Garabagh was a part of the Azerbaijan Garagoyanlu 1410, 1467, and Argoyanlu 1468, 1501 states. However, during the reign of the Argoyanlu dynasty, an event happened that would be remarkable in the further history of Garabagh. In the 15th century, the ruler of Argoyanlu state, Jahan Shah, provided the generation of the former Alban ruler, Hassan Jalal, with the title of Malik. Later on, Jalal were divided into 5 Alban principalities, Malikliks: Gulistan, Jarabad, Kachun, Varandar, and Dizak. The creation of the Azerbaijan Safavid state 1501 was the basis of the centralization process of all Azerbaijan territories. In the mid-16th century, the centralization of Azerbaijan lands at the unified state Azerbaijan territories. and the mid-16th century decentralization of Azerbaijan led as a unified state was completed. And thus, the Azerbaijan Safavid state became a minor state of the region, second only to the Ottoman Empire. In such a case, it was impossible for Armenians to have any ethnic political advantages at the time. On the contrary, in that period of ethnic and political borders of Azerbaijan became clearer. Safavids established 4 Beyler Beyliks in Azerbaijan, one of which was the Garabagh or Ganja Beyler Beylik. Detailed notebooks written by Ottomans in these territories create a clear idea of the administrative territorial division of that Beyler Beylik. In accordance with information from 1593, the Ganja-Garabagh province consists of 7 sanjaks and 36 nahiyas. 1.3 thousand place names in these territories suggest during the detailed notebooks nearly all of them belong to Azerbaijans. None of them ever belonged to Armenians. Following the weakening of the Safavid state in 1736, the territory of Azerbaijan became a field of wars between Iran, Russian, and the Ottoman states. In that period, the lands of Ganja-Garabagh were within the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman notebooks compiled at the time prove as well that Azerbaijanis were the main population of the region. In compliance with calculations in 1727, the Ganja-Garabagh population totaled 122,000 people. 80,300 of them, 66%, were Azerbaijan Turks, 37,800, 31%, were Gregorianized Albans, 300,700, 3.1% were Kurds. In this period, Gregorianized Albans, assisted by Russia, became more actively politically. On the other hand, Nadir Shah Afshar 1736-1747, who overthrew the last Safavid ruler Abbas III and became to power, took heavy measures of punishment against the Turkic Muslim population of the Ganja-Garabagh Beyler Beylik, which refused to recognize him as the legitimate ruler. This factor strengthened the position of the Alban Maliks of Garabagh to mutilate their separatism. After Nadir's death, his state fell into two parts and local state khanates were created in Azerbaijan. In other words, Azerbaijan restored its independence once again in the form of its khanate. Two separate khanates, Ganja and Garabagh, were established in the territory of the former Ganja-Garabagh district. Let us look individually at the Garabagh Khanate, for territorial claims of Armenians against Azerbaijan are linked mainly with it. Garabagh Khanate. Restoration of the Azerbaijan statehood tradition in Garabagh. Garabagh Khanate. Restoration of the Azerbaijan statehood tradition in Garabagh. The founder of the Garabagh Khanate, one of the newly independent Azerbaijan states following the downfall of Nadir Shah Afshar Empire, was Panahala Bey Javanshir, one of the distinguished statesmen of Azerbaijan. He was born in the village of Sarıcalı, Garabagh. Leader of the Garabagh Khanate and historian Mirza Jalal writes, after gaining rule of our Garabagh, Ganja, Tiflis, and Shirvan districts, the deceased Nadir Shah would call all the brave and laborious people he had met and knew in the districts and villages, employ them to high positions, and provide them salary, respect, and career. Among them was Panah Khan, was known as Panahala Khan. Panahala Bey Sarıcalı Javanshir was distinguished in every field for bravery in wars and fight, particularly in the wars of the deceased Nadir with the troops of Rome, means the war against the Ottoman Empire 1730s. However, after the Mughal Congress, Nadir began to punish sternly the people of Garabagh who did want to accept this power and exile the Turkish Muslim population of this district of Afghanistan and Khorasan. Panahala Bey's brother Fazl Ali Khan was executed for rejecting this measure. Seeing this, Panahala Bey made use of the fact that the Shah was in Khorasan and he ran to the Garabagh district with several of his relatives and kindred in 1737-1738. When the Shah received the news about his escape, he sent heralds to catch him on the way. However, they failed. Nadir sent resolute decrees to the viceroy of the Azerbaijan rulers of Ganja, Tiflis, and Shirvan, demanding to catch and bring to him Panah Khan wherever they might find him. Panah Khan's family and other relatives were punished and given a fine by the Shah's order, but it was in vain. Thus, even Nadir was alive, Panahala Bey refused to obey him and tried to rule his native land, Garabagh, independently. Consequently, following Nadir Shah's death, an independent Azerbaijan state, Garabagh Khanate, was created in the lands of Garabagh. Now, after the Garabagh Khanate was announced as an independent state, the main task was to achieve its strengthening. One of the first steps taken by Panah Khan in this field was to bring back the Turkish Muslim population of Karabakh whom Nader was exiled. The return of the internally displaced person and their settlement in their native lands strengthened the Karabakh. Future Khan of Karabakh, 10-year-old Ibrahim Khalil, was also among those becoming back first. When the Karabakh Khanate was created, the cities of Tabriz, Ardabil, Ganja, Shemki, Baku, Nakhchivan, Shaki, and Derbent were not yet established here, whereas the presence of such socio-economic centers was of great importance for the further development of the Khanate. Non-defensive installations as well as building of new cities should be regarded as valuable military, political, and construction achievements of Panah Khan. One of the first steps taken in this direction was the building of the Bayat Castle in 1748, the name of which was linked with an ancient Azerbaijan Turkish tribe Bayat. Khan gathered his entire family, relatives, and all the family members of the region's elders. The people living nearby were many men and artisans of Tabriz and Ardabil districts hearing about Panah Khan's progress, his behavior in love, moved here with their families and settled in the Bayat Castle. Panah Khan's activity in the field of independent state building resulted in the state's official recognition. Mirza Jamal writes, in the Muslim era of 1161, Christian era 1745, 1748, in fact, the decree signed by Adil Shah providing Panah Khan with the title of Khan and his appointment of the position of the ruler of Garabagh as well as precious gifts, a horse with golden saddle and sword adorned with jewelry reached the Bayat Castle, where they were living at that time through a close relative of the wise Karim Shukurov. Adil Shah's decree was in fact a tidy document. The true power had been gained before the Shah's decree and was regardless of it. The unsuccessful attack of the Shaki Khanate of Garabagh played an important role in Panah Khan's recognition as the ruler of Garabagh. The Khan of Shaki, Hajjutalabi started after his unsuccessful Bayat incursion in 1748. So far, Panah Khan was a silver without coins. We came, minted his coin with his name and came back. In other words, Panah Khan had declared himself Khan and I comfort his position with my defeat. These words of Hajjutalabi Khan, which became a saying among people, had in fact a much stronger effect than Adil Shah's decree. Ahmed Bejawanshu writes, after this victory, the legend about the bravery of Panah Khan, which became widespread everywhere, subjected all the Muslim tribes living in Garabagh at the time to him without force. At the same time, the Bayat fight exposed this castle was not going to stand future historical tests. Therefore, a new castle had to be built. Mirza Ad-Ghazalbeh writes, Panah Khan built a castle in Tarnakut, which was known as Shahpula. He ordered to build mosques, houses, karks, and bath houses with stone in line. He finished all of these in 1165 and made that place his abode. Should try to read it. As Panah Khan strengthened the destructive activity of feudal Maliks who spread a stacked type of state increased also. Preventing this became a vital job from the military political point of view. Otherwise, the territorial administrative unit of Khanate could be lost. Regional sources confirm as well historical truths. Mir Mehdi Khan was very correct in writing. The 5 mahals in Garabagh were together called the region of Tamsi before, but now they are different names. Mr. Ad-Ghazalbeh wrote about feudal Maliks. One of these Maliks is Diza. Their Malik is Malik Yagub. He ran away from Lari, sat on the throne of Malik during the reign of Nader Shah at his ordering gained respect. The second Mahal is Varandin. Their Maliks were Maliks of the Shah Nazali dynasty. They belonged to a more ancient generation and enjoyed greater trust. The noblemen of Gaucha were their ancestry. Later they escaped from Gaucha. Khan came to Garabagh and became drunk with power after drinking the bowl of possession of Malik in Varandar Mahal. The third Mahal is Kachin. Their Malik is Hassan Jalal's son, made the bride of power beautiful and became rulers. After his family was deprived of the rank of Malik, this Mahal is no independent Malik. Finally, the deceased Panah Khan's Jawanshir, son of statehood and flag of majesty, raised on the horizon of power and lighted all parts of the Garabagh district with plenary luxury. And the other officials of this eternal state, Malik Mirza Khan from Khinzaristan, minted the coin of the rank of Malik with his name. Father, son, Alabard, and Grand Malik, Karaman raised the flag of Malikli to the skies. The first Mahal is Tulabur. The Malik is Malik Allahkulu. They are originally from Mahaz. They came and became Maliklis in Tulabur and settled in a really strong country in the middle of the Tartar River. They made the Kerma castle, shortly of Tulabur, which had very difficult roads to Garabagh, shelter and habitation. They appropriated Tulabur independently and gained great fame. The Shah gave him the rank and Reb of Sultan. The fifth Mahal is Talish, and the Malik is Malik Yusuf. They sprang up from Shirvan. For some time they lived in the village of Talish. Many of them became Maliks from them once. Further Maliks occupied the Gulistan castle and settled there. Thus, except for Khachun, other Maliksis and their generations, they belonged to were not originally from Garabagh and come to this land from other places. They were not Armenians but representatives of the former Alban generations. Therefore, the fact that Armenian nationalists in order to justify the territorial claims against Azerbaijan considered those Malikliks as a continuance of the Armenian statehood is radically wrong or rather scientific falsification. On the other hand, migrant Maliklis failed to create even a small state union after gaining power over the Mahals in Garabagh. They couldn't rise above the level of the heads of Mahals who lived in an isolated condition and often fought against each other. There is no root of theirs in Garabagh in the period before the 17th century. Maliks represented the forces which wanted strengthening of the feudal disorderlies in Garabagh. The separatist centrifugal activity of Maliks hindered the centralization work going on the Khanate and entire country. Their participation in the alien forces' attacks in Garabagh struck a hard blow to the independence of Garabagh Khanate. Therefore, the measure taken in order to eliminate the separatist reigns of Maliklis for an ethnic conflict, but to fight against the attempt upon the independence of the Garabagh Khanate. The first among the Kamsa Malik to recognize the independence of Panah Khan's power was Malik Shah Nazar. This was achieved through the marriage diplomacy. In other words, Ibrahim Khalil Khan married Malik Shah Nazar's daughter Fursat. The Malik of Khachun ul-Bab recognized Panah Khan's power after he was defeated in Balagaya. Nevertheless, the hostile policy of Jazak, Chilabert and Talish Maliks went on for several years. Ahmed Bey Javanshir writes, after the fierce resistance of the Malik of Turov Jazak, Malik Yagan, together with his sons and relatives who kept the mine of treasure, gathered from neighboring provinces, where some of them were killed and some adopted Islam. Malik of Chilabert Allahkulu Sultan first accepted his power, but later he was killed on Panah Khan's order after being accused of treason. His brother Malik Hatem went into alliance with the fifth Malik of Talush, Malik Yusuf, and defended their settlement from attacks by Panah Khan's forces for a long time, but retreated to the impregnable Kirmuk castle after being defeated in the Mardikard village. After staying in a castle for about a year, he had to look for a shelter in foreign countries. However, his political activity didn't end with this. That is, later on, both he and his sons, son of the first Malik Majnun, were constantly attacking Garabagh. The achievements of Panah Khan in subordinating the Maliks was continued by his son Ibrahim Khan. The Maliks of Garabagh, Yesai from Dizak, Majnun from Tulabert, and Beylarian from Gulistan, refused to subordinate themselves to Ibrahim Khan. However, Malik Shah Nazar from Warandar and Mirza Khan from Khachun accepted his power and joined the patriotic alliance of forces he had created. The allies encircled the Turk castle in 1781. Malik Yesai surrounded and Malik Bahtam came to power here. However, soon he also appeared to be treacheries. From 1783, Russia began to intervene as well in the struggle between separatist Maliks and Ibrahim Khan. Intending to occupy the South Caucasus, Russia tried to create a Christian state in the Azerbaijan territory, or rather its supporter here with the help of those Maliks. Ibrahim Khan managed to gather the hostile Maliks in Shusha with the help of his high diplomatic skill. Based on documents, he proved that they betrayed the Garabagh Khanate and arrested them. Malik Majnun and Bab were put in the Shusha jail. Malik Bahtam was given to the Khan of Ardabil for his faults. The ally of the Maliks, Kasolikas of Ganjasar Monastery, Johans and his brother were arrested and put in jail as well. However, the Maliks managed to escape from the Shusha jail. They came to Tiflis and began to prepare the coup d'etat against the Garabagh Khanate with the help of the Georgian
Tsar Irakli II (1744–1788), and the Russian colonel Burnashov. The enemies beginning a crusade against the Garabagh Khanate approached Ganja. However, this crusade fell due to the start of the Russian-Turkish War in 1787–1791. Ibrahim Khan managed to preserve the integrity of the independent Garabagh Khanate. Mehmed Gajar (1742–1797) came to power in Iran the summer 1795, attacked Garabagh. The 33-day siege of Shusha was unsuccessful. After Shusha attacked Tiflis, Agha Mehmed Gajar had to retreat after the attack of Russian troops commanded by Zubov. When the Russian Tsarina Catherine II (1764–1796) died, Zubov was called back from Azerbaijan. In 1797, Agha Mehmed Gajar attacked Garabagh once again and captured Shusha, but then he was killed there. In late 18th and early 19th centuries, the invasive activity of Russian South Caucasus, including Azerbaijan, increased. In 1801, Georgia was annexed to the Russian Empire. The Darbil Khan 1803 and Ganja Khanate 1804, Azerbaijan were occupied. Under such circumstances, Ibrahim Khan concluded an agreement with the commander of Russian troops, Sisyan of Kirekchai. Pursuant to the Kirekchai Treaty, the Garabagh Khanate was annexed to Russia, especially the Muslim Azerbaijan territory. The Kirekchai Treaty, which reflects a historical reality, is at the same time a reliable document proving that Garabagh, as well as its mountainous part, belongs to the Azerbaijani people. Garabagh under the Russian Empire. Garabagh under the Russian Empire. The Tourist regime in Garabagh, massive resettlement of Armenians to Garabagh. By the Kirekchai Treaty of 1805, the Garabagh Khanate in fact was annexed to Russia, keeping the Khan dominion after 17 years conveyed a strategic purpose. Ibrahim Khan's execution of 1806 demonstrated Russia's rejection of area law. Under his condition of dominion of Mehdigul Khan 1806-1822, the son of Ibrahim Khan was not stable. Under this condition, the Tsar strengthened the occupying regime and in order to firmly establish the Khanate territory tried to weaken the economic condition of the ruling Muslim stratum and vice versa to raise Griganized and Armenianized Albans whom he considered supportive to his superior position. After the abolition of the Khanate, a Kagyu administrative rule as in the other territories in Azerbaijan was established here as well, and it included the military Muslim district. At that time, Lieutenant General Madatov, 1822-1829, who had taken part in annexation operations of the Russian army and who was Armenian by origin, established an Armenian-Russian annexation regime in the true sense of the word. As a result of the influence of the 1830 uprisings, the Tsar carried out administrative military reform on April 10, 1840. In accordance with this reform, the Garabagh region had been changed to the Shusha Yazd and put under the Caspian province's supervision. With that, the Garabagh nation had lost its political meaning and stayed only the geographical notch. During this administrative territorial division of 1846, the Shusha Yazd had been put under the newly established Shamakh provinces since 1859 Baku supervision. In 1867, when the Yelizaveta gubernia had been established, the Shusha Yazd was put under its supervision. The territory of Shusha Yazd was divided into three additional Yazds, and Yazur, Javanshur, and Jabrail were created here. By that, the Shusha Yazd also lost its administrative political ruling. Such administrative territorial division had been carried out for that specific purpose. These reforms gave a widespread opportunity to Armenians to be represented in the ruling system. Tourism occupying North Azerbaijan territories at the same time carried out the Armenianization policy of the territories. Since the Turkmenchay Treaty of 1828, this event had become more regular and purposeful. The resettlement of the Armenians from Iran to North Azerbaijan was confirmed by the 15th article of this treaty. Due to this article, the Shah gives officials and inhabitants eager to move from Iran province to Russia with their families freely from the day to carry, possess and sell immovable property without fixing customs and tax prices to their properties and goods for sale without laying obstacles of governmental and local authorities. As far as the immovable property concerned, 5-year period is determined for its selling or for a decision to be taken on it. This article has been purposefully included in the Turkmen Treaty ensuring that Armenians could massively and freely move from Iran to North Azerbaijan, including Karabakh. Legal, political, guarantee and organizational measures have been taken related to the resettlement of Armenians. By the Derna Treaty of 1829, resettlement of Armenians from the Ottoman Empire to the recently occupied North Azerbaijan territories began to carried out. One of the principal directions in the resettlement of Armenians for Karabakh lands. Your Majesty, don't allow Armenians to settle in the central lands of Russia by any means. They are such a race which, having lived there for several decades, would start declaring all over the world that these places were their primordial lands. Gorbachev abstract from the letter to Russian Emperor. During the abolition of the Karabakh Khanate, the ethnic composition of its population was reflected in a description which was compiled by instruction of the Commander-in-Chief of the Russian Army in Caucasus, Yermolov, 1816-1827. If we compare statistics since 1593, you can see that despite the Armenianization policy carried out in Karabakh, the Azerbaijanis formed the majority of the population again. According to the description from 20.95 families in Karabakh provinces, 15.729 were Azerbaijanis, 4,366 were Armenians. It should be noted that the majority of these Armenians were Greganized and Armenianized from Albans. As a result of mass resettlement of Armenians to Karabakh appeared new Armenian villages. Sometime later, Armenians erected monuments in Karabakh in honor of their resettlement, but in 80s of 20th century during territorial claims they falsified them. During only 1828-30 years, 40,000 Armenians from Iran, 90,000 Armenians from the Ottoman Empire were resettled to North Azerbaijan as well as in Karabakh. Official information would numbered over 200,000 together with unofficial Armenian immigrants. After resettlement, the Armenians' number in the ethnic composition of Karabakh started growing. Completion of Greganization and Armenianization of Azerbaijan Alban population of Karabakh. Completion of Greganization and Armenianization of Azerbaijan Alban population of Karabakh. As was mentioned above, the Greganization and Armenianization of Alban population of Dal Karabakh was a long process. The aborigines of Karabakh, as the population of other North Azerbaijan lands, have been Alban tribes. At the beginning of the 4th century, in some places of Albania, including Kyrgyz, Christianity was spread. During the Arabian Caliphate's occupation and the rule in 7th and 9th centuries, the Islamic religion was spread in the country, but Albans living in the mountainous parts of Karabakh remained Christians. Armenian Gregorian missionaries immigrated to the South Caucasus and used favorable conditions established as a result of the Arabian Caliphate's occupation began to Greganize and their Armenianized Christian Alban population of the mountainous part of Karabakh. The historical process of Armenianization lasted longer than Greganization. The Christian population in the mountainous part of Karabakh called themselves Albans, and the latter to Peter I. This proves that they didn't yet consider themselves Armenians at the beginning of 18th century. From the beginning of 18th century, during the Armenianization process of Albania, a fundamental change took place. Intervention by Russia in the region set the resettlement of Armenians from other countries, the South Caucasus, including Azerbaijan, strengthened here the Armenian factor. This policy was a turning point in the history of Greganized Albans living in the mountainous parts of Karabakh. Their Armenianization process entered the last stage. During the Russia-Turkey wars, 1804-1813, 1826-1828, and Russian-Aryan Wars 1806-1812, 1828-1829, especially after 1828 Turkmenchay and 1829 Edirne Treaty mass resettlement of Armenians from Iran and Ottoman states to other regions of Azerbaijan including Karabakh and the Armenianization process of the Greganized Aborigines Albans. In 1836 Alban Catholicism was annulled. Only after this, it is possible to use the word Armenian in connection with the Alban population, and it can be used tentatively. Despite all this, the Karabakh Armenians compared to other Armenians have all historically kept their specific features connected with their Alban roots. Beginning of Armenian genocide against Azerbaijanis in Azerbaijan, including Karabakh. Beginning of Armenian genocide against Azerbaijanis in Azerbaijan, including Karabakh. After the 1830s, Armenians' mass resettlement in Azerbaijan land as well as to Karabakh continued. Russian scholar in Caucasian Studies, Shukurov wrote that 1911, more than 1 million Armenians out of 1.3 million in Caucasus were immigrants. Despite this, since 1916, 51% of the population again was Azerbaijani and 46% was Armenian, together with local Alban origin Armenians. In Karabakh, within the Khanate borders, 1 million out of 1.3 million Armenians living in Transcaucasia are immigrants. We have moved them to this area. Shukurov, new to Russian business in Transcaucasia, destroying sale of migrant to foreigners. St. Petersburg, 1911. Settlement of Armenians in the mountains part of Karabakh near the Aborigines who practiced the same religion became widespread. This was done in order to provide compact with the living of immigrant Armenians and carried the strategic aid. The strengthening of the administrative management system of Armenians and the mechanical increasing of their number by way of resettlement was followed by the strengthening of their economic potential as well as the result of comprehensive supporting and favorable conditions established by tourism. Armenians became strong in the economic life of Karabakh. As a result of a supportive and purposeful policy of the Russian Empire, enhanced economic potential had been achieved of Armenians. In North Azerbaijan, the discriminatory policy of tourism during the abolishment of the commitment system upon all Bering lands in 1872 began to draw great attention in Baku. As a result, Azerbaijanis received only 5%, but Armenians received more than 50% of land areas. 55 big and middle companies out of 167 operating in Baku belonged to Armenians, etc. A comprehensive program for increasing the cultural educational level of Armenians was established at this time. Despite this, Karabakh and its central Shusha city still remained one of the administrative, political and cultural centers of the Azerbaijani people. Despite all these obstacles and counteraction of tourist ruling and its colonial policy, Karabakh was being developed as an Azerbaijan land. So, for a short time, Armenians massively settled in Azerbaijan as well as in the Caucasus while obtaining widespread opportunities provided by tourist Russia for administrative, political, socio-administrative and cultural development. Thus, they began clearly fighting for the realization of a great Armenian idea in Azerbaijan land. One of the main parts of this idea was to annihilate the local Azerbaijani population of Garabagh, Yerevan, Nakhchivan, and other Azerbaijan lands and capture the land where the Azerbaijanis were living. As Armenians' revolts arose against the Ottoman state starting in 1890 had not been successful, the center of this fight became North Azerbaijan. Beginning in 1905, Armenians committed mass genocide against the Azerbaijan people. The genocide policy of Armenians against Azerbaijan and Karabakh was more tragic. Even the 1905-1906 annihilation carried out by Armenians didn't satisfy them. They tried their best to use the historical condition caused by the First World War to establish mythic a great Armenian state. Following a near revolt against the Ottoman state in 1915, Armenians gathered their forces in the South Caucasus and began to continue their genocide against the Azerbaijanis. Because of the anarchy in the Caucasus with the overthrowing the tourist government in 1917 in February, then the seizing of power by Bolsheviks in Russia in 1917 October. During this long-term historical period, Armenian armed groups serving in the Russian army joined with Bolsheviks and began a new period of more terrible annihilation against the Azerbaijanis. New mass genocide beginning with the March genocide of 1918 in Baku dealt a heavy blow to the Azerbaijani people. By establishing the Azerbaijan People's Republic, a new period began Azerbaijan history. The Azerbaijan People's Republic avoided complete annihilation of the Azerbaijan people by armed Armenian band of robbers and Dashnak Bolshevik regime in North Azerbaijan. Karabakh period of the Azerbaijan People's Republic 1918-1920. Karabakh period of the Azerbaijan People's Republic 1918-1920. On May 28, 1980, after Russian bannage continuing approximately 120 years, Azerbaijan established a new independent state in North Azerbaijan. In its independence declaration of Azerbaijan People's Republic declared its illegal inheritance of North Azerbaijan land occupied by Russia according to Gulistan in 1917, 1913 and Turkmenistan in 1928 treaties. The first article of Independence Declaration said, Since today peoples of Azerbaijan have sovereign rights, Azerbaijan consisting of East and Southern Caucasus is a full right independent state. The Azerbaijan People's Republic also published a map of its territory and well founded from a legal political aspect. It goes without saying Karabakh is an integral part of Azerbaijan together with other North Azerbaijan lands belonging to the territory of Azerbaijan People's Republic. But at that time the recently declared Armenian Republic was also laying a groundless claim to Karabakh. The Azerbaijan People's Republic rejected this claim. Chairman of Parliament of the Azerbaijan People's Republic Topçubashov 1862-1934 announced at the negotiations held on November 18, 1918 with the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Ottoman state. The Karabakh issue is thrown into the Middle East, not an issue of 5 or 10 villages, that despite is on the whole for Sanjaks, Shusha, Javanshir, Jabrayil, and Zengezur. It's a territory of such nature where a number of Armenians and Azerbaijanis isn't equal, and there isn't any basis to speak about the absolute majority of Armenians, and also they are not local inhabitants of this territory. They were resettled here after the war with Russia from Turkey. Finally, Armenians in Karabakh densely but alongside Muslims. Despite this, we are supporters of a peaceful solution of this issue. Armenians continued annihilation that had taken place before also during the Azerbaijan People's Republic period. Taking into consideration the situation of January 1990, the Azerbaijan government established Karabakh General Governorship, which continued the Shusha, Javanshir, Jabrayil and Zengezur reasts. Sultan was appointed to this point. Minister of Foreign Affairs of Armenia, Tigranyan, protested against establishing Karabakh Governor General administration, but in response the Azerbaijan People's Republic government called it Grand List, and these territories were stated as an integral part of Azerbaijan territorial claims of Armenians from one side, worsening the relations first with English, then with Americans on the other side, made the Karabakh Governor General work in a tense situation. At the end of 1919 and spring of 1920, Armenian Dashnag armed band of robbers committed an attack and massive massacre against the peaceful Azerbaijani population in Zengezur. Armenians didn't act peacefully in Javanshir as well. Their attacks on the foothill villages of the west became an ordinary event. Armenian band of robbers committed violent acts against the Azerbaijani population and the flat part of this district in the spring-summer months of 1980. Armenians blocking the Tartar River Sweta and the Sada water in other direction, thus the low-flying lands of the US were waterless and they did great damage to them. There was even a shortage of drinkable water in low-lying lands. Armenian band of robbers also attacked the peaceful population in other areas of GARABAGH and Jabrayil. In December 1980, Armenians' attacks on Azerbaijan villages of Jabrayil became wider, and at the beginning of 1919 they had a more heinous character. Armenian savages were more extreme in the Shusha than in the political center of Karabakh in Shusha city. On December 20, 1922, Shadons, the former responsible representative of the Transcaucasian Control Committee in Karabakh, despite forging some truths, confessed that the entire Karabakh was included in Azerbaijan People's Republic's territory. During Azerbaijan People's Republic times of the most treacherous walls of the Armenians happened in Shusha on March 22, 1920 on Norris holiday. The separate vote was by the order of Bolsheviks who were planning to occupy Azerbaijan. At that time, despite opposing a revolt of Armenian separatists, in most places Armenians were able to seize the Asgaran fortress. Military political measures taken by the Azerbaijan People's Republic completely restored Azerbaijani's sovereign rights in Karabakh. Separatist revolts and atrocities committed by Armenians against Azerbaijanis in Karabakh was high treason against Azerbaijan. It was a stab in the black and weakened the northern borders of our country on the eve of the April 1920 occupation of Bolsheviks and put the existence of independent Azerbaijan state, Azerbaijan Republic, under danger. Granting autonomy to Karabakh 1920-1923. granting autonomy to Daghestan, 1920-1923. Daghestan geography and the notion of Daghestan. Before explaining this problem, let's first look at the geography of Daghestan and the notion of Daghestan. According to its relief, Karabakh is divided into two parts, lowlands and mountains. This reality is also confirmed in science. For example, Skibetsky, son of the famous researcher in Caucasian studies, Skibetsky writes in his article titled Caucasian Crisis, the entire mountainous part of the Karabakh Khanate was called Daghestan at that time. The range of Karabakh mountains in the east and the lands between the Zengezur Mountains in the west, as well as the Karabakh plateau separating the upper Karabakh and the lower and lower Karabakh, belonged to that territory. As it is known, the notion of Karabakh lost its previous administrative political meaning since the territory of Karabakh, or rather the lands of the former Karabakh Khanate, suffered different administrative divisions during the reign of Tsarist Russia. However, in the period of Azerbaijan People Republic 1918-1920, the notion of the Tsarist Russia, notion of Karabakh was again restored to its previous meaning. As is seen from the above-mentioned words of Shaduns, the term Daghestan had been created by Dashnaks at that very time. From then on, the notion of Daghestan began to have not only geographic but also political importance. Following the Bolsheviks coming to power in Azerbaijan, this notion began to have an administrative political meaning and turned into one of the main notions in relations between Azerbaijan and Armenia, as well as in the political vocabulary of Russia, which intervened into these relations. Meanwhile, the geographic range of Daghestan changed as well. Again, as Skibetsky wrote, the Karabakh plateau was granted autonomy in 1923 and was named Autonomous Daghestan Oblast, or simply Daghestan, within the new borders of Azerbaijan. Daghestan Autonomous Oblast is the creation chronology of its main event and conclusions deriving from this. In order to define the principal issues regarding the creation of the Daghestan Autonomous Oblast, rather to imagine this process distinctly, let's look through the main events chronologically in accordance with their geographical location. A careful look at the table shows that the course of events was divided into two stages. Until the resolution of the Russian Communist Party Central Committee Caucasian Bureau dated July 5, 1921. After resolution to granting autonomy to Daghestan, the events related to granting autonomy to Daghestan took place mainly between Azerbaijan first and second columns. In Caucasus Bureau, the Transcaucasia State Committee, fifth column, while concerning Daghestan granting, while Armenia actually stood aside from these processes. These facts require examination of the event concerning Daghestan granting autonomy to it, as well as restoration of the objective history of the creation of Daghestan Autonomous Oblast. Nariman Declaration, December 1, 1928, July 5, 1921. Following the establishment of Soviet power in Azerbaijan, Sovnarchy was created and extraordinary commissioners were appointed to the regions. And Karakaz of 1938 was appointed the extraordinary commissaries of Daghestan. The Azerbaijan Soviet government delivers an ultimatum to Armenian Republic on April 3, 1920, demanding the withdrawal of Armenian forces from Zengezur and Karabakh. In May, the establishment of Soviet power in Karabakh was declared. At that time, Soviet Russia was continuing a plan of Sovietization of the Caucasus region and trying to control the activity of the existing and future states by putting forward the principles of delineation of new Soviet states. The instruction of the Political Bureau of the Russian Communist Party Central Committee Caucasian Bureau to the Caucasian Front Military Revolutionary Council dated July 7 touched upon this issue. Following the establishment of Soviet power in Armenia, November 29, 1920, not only the delimitation of external borders but also divisions within its borders deteriorated. The telegram of Azarevkov, Azerbaijan Revolutionary Committee, dated November 30 to the Armenian Soviet Republic, as well as its declaration date on November 1st, dealt with Karabakh and its mountainous part. The distortion of these documents in Armenian historical science is proven by fact. The declaration in fact declared that laborious villagers of Daghestan were granted the right to complete self-determination. In a statement dated December 28, 1920, the Armenian Revolutionary Committee stated that Armenia should take its hand of Nakhchivan. But Armenia didn't want to let Karabakh slip through their fingers. Karabakh was again made an agenda issue regarding the delimitation between Azerbaijan and Armenia. The Caucasian Bureau adopted the resolution willfully and without the concurrence of Azerbaijan on the inclusion of the article on belonging Karabakh to Armenia in the Armenian governmental statement on June 3, 1921. The Armenian Sonaricum Council of People Commissars decreed this on June 12. Such course of events didn't satisfy Azerbaijan. The meeting of the Azerbaijan Communist Party Central Committee Political Bureau and Organization Bureau with the chairmanship of Kaminsky, 1895-1938, Secretary of the Azerbaijan Communist Party Central Committee, dated June 27 in Tiflis, discussed border issue between Azerbaijan and Armenia as a part of self-determination granted to Karabakh was expressed here for the first time. The almost settlement of the issue came through involvement of the Armenian and Muslim community to the Soviet building work, as stated in Comrade Nerimanov's statement. It was entrusted to Nerimanov to deliver the opinion of the Political Bureau and Organization Bureau to Tiflis. Nerimanov spoke the chairman of the Azerbaijan Executive Committee, Javan Minister of Foreign Affairs, Husseinov, by direct line on that every day. Nerimanov said that this is the conclusion of the Political and Organization Bureau. If they refer to my statement, the statement says literally the following: Karabakh is given the full right for self-determination. Husseinov: alright, I will deliver everything. In a way, I should say that our decision will definitely be received coldly. Again that day, Hussein informed the Caucasian Bureau of this. It was decided to call the extraordinary plenum of the Caucasian Bureau on this issue and invite Nerimanov and Masnikov to Tiflis. How an integral part of Azerbaijan was granted autonomy. Resolutions of the Caucasian Bureau dated on July 4th and 5th, 1921. The meeting of the Caucasian Bureau took place in Tiflis regarding this issue. Because of its special importance, we submit the translation of extracts from the minutes of the meeting of the Caucasian Bureau dated on July 4th evening and July 5th. First plenum of the Caucasian Party Central Committee meeting, July 5th, 1921. Members of the Caucasian Bureau. It was decided, taking into account the urgency of national peace between Muslims and Armenians and the rather extensive economic relations of Upper and Lower Karabakh with Azerbaijan, to maintain Karabakh within the Azerbaijan Soviet Socialist Republic and to grant it with extensive district autonomy city as an administrative center within the autonomous oblast. Voting in favor 4, abstained 3. To charge the Azerbaijan Central Committee with the task of defining the autonomous oblast's borders with the condition of submitting it further to confirmation of the Russian Communist Party Central Committee Caucasian Bureau. To require the Presidium of the Russian Communist Party Central Committee Caucasian Bureau to conduct negotiations with Azerbaijan and Armenian Central Committee regarding the nominee to the Karabakh Extraordinary Committee. Azerbaijan Central Committee to define the scale of autonomy of Karabakh and submitted for the confirmation of the Russian Communist Party Central Committee Caucasian Bureau. Secretary of the Caucasian Bureau of the Russian Communist Party Central Committee. But in fact, the meetings of the Russian Communist Party Central Committee Caucasian Bureau on July 4th and 5th don't confirm the existence of facts regarding the pressure by Stalin on the decision adopted. As of the resolution of Lenin's idea of socialist state of the federative system by Stalin, who acted with this plan of autonomization as regal of the eve of the establishment of the USSR, December 3, 1922, seems absurd. Therefore, the issue must be considered in a deeper and more global way. The center of in the name of Caucasian Bureau acted the plenipotentiary side in settlement of border issue before the creation of USSR and before Armenia and Azerbaijan became the members of the USSR. The issue of Karabakh became an issue that needed to be discussed trilaterally. Caucasian Bureau used this right and didn't give a chance to the natural and historical realization of the article on self-determination declared by Azerbaijan Karabakh and expressed it as if extensive district autonomy. The Caucasian Bureau wanted to put pressure upon Azerbaijan that Karabakh can be given to Armenia. The next day, by coming back to this issue with the aim of pressing Armenia that maintenance of Karabakh within Azerbaijan can be confirmed and provide favorable position for the center that's granting autonomy to Karabakh and achieved it. Thus, following the resolution of the Caucasian Bureau plenum dated on July 5th, the events related to Karabakh turned in a new direction. The Caucasian Bureau provided a favorable decision for the center and began to apply pressure for its realization. Thus, Azerbaijan and USSR confronted the new conditions due to the forced granting of autonomy to its integral parts, Dal-Garabagh. Armenia tried to deteriorate the relations between Caucasian Beria and Azerbaijan in connection with the Dal-Garabagh issue and to realize its claims for Dal-Garabagh's rights opportunities to intervene in the affairs of Dal-Garabagh as a result of granting autonomy to it. These issues should be considered in a detailed form, changing and Kirov's position. Following the adoption of the resolution dated on July 5th, Azerbaijan leadership had started its implementation. In regard to this, meeting of the Azerbaijan Central Executive Committee Presidium dated on July 19th approved the results of Nermanov's Tiflis visit, and the meeting of the Azerbaijan Communist Party Central Committee Political Bureau and Organization Bureau dated on July 20th, and the committee was set up to prepare a constitution for the autonomous oblast. Here there is state, military and social political figures from Garabagh. Here there is need to clarify one issue. As is already known, the resolution dated July 5th gave a decisive role to the Azerbaijan Communist Party Central Committee in granting autonomy to Dal-Garabagh. Evidently, this factor played important roles also in that Kirov was brought to the leadership of the Azerbaijan Communist Party Central Committee in July 1921. Directly after Kirov's coming to power in Azerbaijan, the official attitude towards granting autonomy to Dal-Garabagh changed, and this process was delayed for about 2 years. Therefore, Kirov's position around this issue and the factors affecting it must be analyzed specifically. If we look at the extract form of the minutes of the meeting of July 4th, we see that at that time Kirov was against the maintenance of the mountainous parts of Garabagh within Azerbaijan and voted for its annexation to Armenia. Kirov also took part in the meetings of the Azerbaijan Central Committee Executive Committee Presidium in July 19th and the meeting of the Azerbaijan Communist Party Central Committee Political Bureau and Organization Bureau in July 20th, as well as in the adoption of the mentioned decisions. At the meeting of the Azerbaijan Communist Party Central Committee Political Bureau and Organization Bureau taking place with the direct chairmanship of Kirov, we see that this position has changed completely. 7 out of the 9 persons, Kirov, Nermanov, Akhundov, Garayev, Afandiev, Stukalov, Mirzayan, Bunyadzadeh and Husseinov, taking part in the meeting, decided to ask the Caucasian Bureau to reconsider the decision on the separation of Dal-Garabagh. Only 2 of them, Nermanov and Bunyadzadeh, supported the realization of the decision of the Caucasian Bureau in the shortest time. A committee was established to gather materials on this issue. Bunyadzadeh, who was heading the conference of responsible workers of Garabagh taking place in October 21, attended by members of the Azerbaijan Communist Party Central Committee Organization Bureau, also supported Kirov's position. That is, separation of Dal-Garabagh as an autonomous oblast was not considered appropriate as shown as a special note at that meeting. Thus, it appears that new attitude towards the autonomy of Dal-Garabagh emerged through Kirov's leadership. This was not accidental. Kirov had become sure that not only his position but also the decision of the Caucasian Bureau in granting force the autonomy to Dal-Garabagh instead of confirming it as an integral part of Azerbaijan, as well as the necessity of the realization of this decision quickly, was wrong. Even 4 months after the decree granting autonomy to Dal-Garabagh, the meeting of the Azerbaijan Communist Party Central Committee Presidium, which took place on October 8, 1923, with Kirov's chairmanship, admitted that the propaganda of the decision of granting autonomy to Dal-Garabagh among the population, particularly among Turks, was not finished. How was Azerbaijan made to accept the decision of granting autonomy to Dal-Garabagh? This course of events caused an anxiety within the Caucasian Bureau, and there began pressures to make Azerbaijan accept the decision dated on July 5th. This was carried out in 2 ways. On the one hand, a requirement was put before the Azerbaijan leadership. On the other hand, the leadership of Dal-Garabagh was threatened with Armenian cadres sent here special, and efforts were made to weaken Azerbaijan's influence in that region. The autonomization of Dal-Garabagh was taking place in parallel with the process of the creation of the Transcaucasian Federation and the USSR. Despite this, the problems concerning its realization was not reconsidered in the way suggested by the Azerbaijan Communist Party. On the contrary, in February 1922, at the first Congress of the Transcaucasian Communist Organizations, the Russian Communist Party Transcaucasian State Committee, with Orджоникидze elected as the chairman, used the administrative power methods in implementation of the decision date on July 5th as the done in its adoption. The meeting of the Transcaucasian State Committee dated on October 27, 1922 suggested to the Azerbaijan Communist Party Central Committee to implement the decision dated on July 5th, and it decided to appoint Karakazov as the chairman of the executive committee and to send Shadons for an official visit to the Azerbaijan Communist Party Central Committee for the purpose of appointing him to a responsible position. The meeting of the Azerbaijan Communist Party Central Committee on December 15th adopted the decision of the Transcaucasian State Committee for execution, and the Central Committee Kirov, Mirzabekan and Karakazov for Dal-Garabah affairs, as well as setting up a committee December 15, 1922, July 24, 1923, consisting of 7 persons at the Azerbaijan SSR Sovnarkom. Despite all these actions, the pressure on Azerbaijan went on. On December 22, the Union Soviet of the Transcaucasian Federation adopted a special decision on rapidly granting autonomy to Dal-Garabah. Following the creation of the USSR, the requirements of the Transcaucasian State Committee became even stricter. In May 1923, the report of Dal-Garabah was included in the agenda of the plenum of the Transcaucasian State Committee. On June 1st, the Azerbaijan Communist Party Central Committee Presidium made a decision on decreeing of autonomy to the Karabakh and the submission of its draft to the Central Committee within 3 days. This decision satisfied the Caucasian State Committee. On June 27, based on Shadun's and Karakazov's report, the plenum of the Caucasian State Committee advised the Azerbaijan Communist Party Central Committee to provide the grant of autonomy to Dal-Garabah within a month. Only July 1st, a meeting of the Azerbaijan Communist Party Central Committee Presidium headed by Kirov listened to the issue on Karabakh and adopted the decision consisting of 6 provisions. It was suggested to the Azerbaijan Central Executive Committee to grant autonomy to Dal-Garabakh and create the autonomous Dal-Garabakh Oblast, with Khankandi at the center. Committee Garayev chairman, members Karakazov, Sevridov, Ildirim, and Bunyadzadeh was set up to determine issues connected with borders. On July 4th, the Azerbaijan Central Executive Committee of the Soviet also adopted a decision of the same content. The Azerbaijan Central Executive Committee of the Soviets issued a decree on the creation of the Dal-Garabakh Autonomous Oblast with signature of Gasumov 1879 and 1949 and Mahmudov 1893 and 1937 on July 7th. The decree consists of the preamble for provisions and the conclusion on the establishment of a joint committee. As can be seen, there is a difference between the decision of the Azerbaijan Communist Party Central Committee and the name of the decree, because instead of separating the low and the mountains parts of Karabakh, it was decided to separate only Dal-Garabakh. The fact that the decree was named the Autonomous Dal-Garabakh Oblast attracted attention. However, afterwards it was named Dal-Garabakh Autonomous Oblast. We have to follow this tradition as well as in order not to cause confusion, but we accept it in the meaning part marked in the first official document. The decree differs rather from its primitive content instead of the serious legal document. Historical chronology is breaking, the preamble facts are distorted, and the necessity of granting autonomy to Dal-Garabakh is not sufficiently grounded. There is a legal political around the first provision of the decree. To create an autonomous oblast from the main parts of Dal-Garabakh as a constituent part of the Azerbaijan Soviet Socialist Republic, with Khankandi as the center. Instead of confirming the Dal-Garabakh Autonomous Oblast was created out of Azerbaijan lands and is an integral part of Azerbaijan, they used expression that could be interpreted differently. The third provision states the creation of a temporary revolutionary committee before the morning of the Soviet Congress. This undoubtedly provided the Armenian leadership of the oblast with wider rights, etc. Shusha city was included to the Dal-Garabakh Autonomous Oblast by the decision of the Azerbaijan Communist Party Central Committee Presidium dated on 16th, 10 days after the decree. The regulations of 1923 of the Gubernial Executive Committee for Dal-Garabakh Autonomous Oblast was adopted and applied. The regulation Dal-Garabakh Autonomous Oblast was published on November 26, 1924. Thus, an integral part of Azerbaijan, Karabakh was artificially divided into plain and mountainous parts, and Azerbaijan leadership was forced to provide the status of autonomy to the Armenians that settled later in the mountainous part of Karabakh. In addition, this was made without taking into account the opinion of Azerbaijan's living in the territory in Dal-Garabakh and thus evidently violated their rights. Dal-Garabakh formula for Armenia. Dal-Garabagh formula for Armenia. Armenia's position and the maintenance of Dal-Garabagh within Azerbaijan and its autonomization also causes interest. First, Armenia didn't want to agree to such a settlement of the issue. On July 16, 1921, the Armenian Communist Party Central Committee stated that the decision